When I was 13 years old, my life was terrible. You're not here for me to tell you all the ways that was true, but it was. I lived a small, sad, sheltered, homeschooled little life, and for much of the beginning of it, my parents ensured that I had very few windows out into the rest of the world. What I did have more closely resembled little pinpricks of light. My parents not paying enough attention to what I was reading from the library to police it. A Tumblr account I didn't really understand how to use for anything other than aesthetic purposes, and probably a little bit too much access to the internet. And on that internet, I discovered John Green. I can't remember exactly how. I think most likely from seeing that if people were rain, I was a drizzle and she was a hurricane line from his first novel, Looking for Alaska, when Tumblr users used to plaster that into any conceivable fandom context. The one wall young adult section of my local library had a very long waiting list for their single copy of Looking for Alaska, and so I read anything else I could find by John Green instead. And while I waited, I discovered his YouTube channel. And that was more than a pinprick. That was one of my first windows out into the world, and I pressed myself against it wholeheartedly. I had, at some point in 2012, watched every video available to me on the Vlogbrothers YouTube channel. At some point in that process, Looking for Alaska finally came in at the library. I decided I liked Paper Towns more. I also decided I was very excited about his upcoming book, The Fault in Our Stars, and I talked endlessly, with no expectation of ever owning one, about how cool I thought it was that the first 100,000 copies of this book would be signed. I did not have the kind of parents who bought me books for reasons outside of my birthday, and I knew better than to ask. I expected to wait months for a copy from the library, like I had for Looking for Alaska, the way I had to when I read the last book in the Hunger Games trilogy. I think I'll remember for the rest of my life how I felt when my father surprised me with one of the signed copies of the book. Excited in a way I think maybe only a teenage girl can ever get. Grateful in a way that was only really possible because of my severely managed expectations. Like most things I remember from my childhood, if I start to think about this story for too long, even this one starts to get sad. A $17 book felt like such an impossible ask, like something I had to want but not get. But this time I got it. I got it and I loved it to the point of it becoming a personality trait. And 5 days into having this new personality trait, on that YouTube channel that I loved so much, there was a live stream event celebrating the release of the book at Carnegie Hall. It was a reading and a Q&A with musical guests, including John Green's brother Hank, who I was already familiar with, and a band I had only ever heard referenced by John. His favorite band. And I didn't know it yet, but my favorite band too. The Mountain Goats. I'm going to spend the rest of my life being very grateful for what the windows I pressed myself up against taught me about the sort of person I wanted to be, what they taught me about how to care about other people and the world I live in, and also how to let myself enjoy things enthusiastically and without a need to feel cringe or shame for them. I may no longer primarily identify with the fandom around the Green Brothers the way I used to toward the beginning of my time online, but the community that sprung up around their videos and their various projects is something that was incredibly formative to me, and remains formative even now when John Green has entire novels out that I have not gotten around to reading. And I have a similar relationship with the band he introduced me to. The Mountain Goats are my favorite band. I think that's a title they're likely to hold for the rest of my life, but there are entire albums I haven't even heard. And depending on how familiar you are with the Mountain Goats, or with their extremely extensive discography, especially relative to other bands you might love the way I love this band, me not even knowing all of their albums might sound either completely reasonable to you or not reasonable at all. But when I say extremely extensive discography, I mean it. The Mountain Goats have been making music for longer than I have been alive, and as a result, they have gone through many evolutions and permutations. The in-joke with the fandom, so ubiquitous that it was even the name of a podcast by Joseph Fink, the Welcome to Night Vale guy, is a phrase that, at least for me, proves to have different levels of accuracy depending on what point I'm at in my life. I only listen to the Mountain Goats. The thing is, with the size of the band's discography and the intensity of your hyperfixation, that can be a very, very easy thing to do. At the time of recording, the Mountain Goats currently have 23 studio albums. This is in addition to compilation albums, live albums, EPs, unreleased albums, and unreleased singles. The discography is vast and can be overwhelming, What I want to do in this video is talk about the survival anthems by my favorite band and the different things that those songs have meant to me at different points in my life. But so often, when I reference the Mountain Goats as my favorite band, I am met with either the blank stare that tells me that they can tell that a hyperfixation ramble is about to come on and they would like to avoid it at any cost, or I'm told, completely reasonable, that the size of the discography has been overwhelming and daunting to them and kept them from getting into the band. And I agree, the discography can totally be overwhelming. I would be overwhelmed if I did not have some 14 years now of a knowledge base about this band. And that is, in part, why I brought in an expert and a friend to help me with this video.
Hello, my name is Emerald, and the Mountain Goats are also my favorite band, if that's not obvious by my tour poster gallery behind me. I am just barely older than the Mountain Goats, only a couple of years. And my area of expertise, I would say, are the vast collection of fan recorded live tapes that are up on archive.org. I met my husband at a Mountain Goat show. He's a taper. He tapes all the shows that we go to if he can. And I also make themed compilations sourced from the Live Music Archive, because if you're just getting into the Mountain Goats and you think their discography is overwhelming, there are close to or just now over 500 live tapes available on the internet going back to 1991. So I kind of make these themed compilations as a way to like kind of ease people into them, give them a way to explore it without just clicking at random. And I even made one just for this video.
How long ago did we start working on that compilation? Because I feel like we worked on it for a really long time, and then you put it out a while ago, but like we had like a stretch of time where we were working on that, right?
Yes. So we originally wanted to do this video for New Year's Eve 2024. So just about a year ago. But unfortunately, the idea for it just kind of came up too late to really get it out on time. Life stuff, this and that. And when you came to me with the idea for this video, I was actually working on just kind of like a short essay that I titled something like, I've seen the Mountain Goats 100 times live and you should too, asterisk, or whatever your version of this thing is. And so the concept of just like making a video about the song this year, about making it, and then reasons to continue making it. It was just really kind of like kismet, the fact that we were kind of working on the same idea. And since my kind of thing that I do are the compilations, I thought it would be really great to make one for people who find this year on or around New Year's Eve and really resonate with that feeling of I made it despite the circumstances in my life, and I'm just gonna keep on making it, and kind of make a compilation of a good number of the survival anthems that the Mountain Goats do as a way to kind of ease new fans into it's kind of what I would consider like a greatest hits almost, if you can consider anything above the 3 known Mountain Goat songs as greatest hits. And also as a way to kind of introduce people into the live tape. I have always been a big mixtape person, going back to cassettes on the boombox, and then, with getting a computer, burning CDs. I put a lot of thought into the sequencing of these comps. So of course, it's your life. You can live however you choose to. But I do intend for it to be listened from start to finish, because there is a flow to it. And I try to make it also kind of replicate what kind of the flow of a Mountain Goat show is. And so there's slow builds, rises and falls. There's collective themes between strings of songs building up to a big like climax and catharsis, leading you back down, and then ending off on a really great note. And so yeah, I'm really happy with how that comp turned out.
If you're looking to listen to our live tape, you can find it on Emerald's website, which will be linked in the description below. Right? You have a link out to it from your website?
Yeah, so I made a directory, because there's a lot of different things that I talk about. And so I made a little directory. In that directory, you can find a link to sign up to me and my husband's newsletter. In that newsletter is where we send out links to the live tapes where they're available, the comps, and also just do big write-ups about the shows that we go to. Also is a link to all of my husband's tapes, and then to the Mountain Goats Live Music Archive, where you can just dig through all of that. And then there's also a link to all the comps that I've made. And so archive.org is free to stream, download from, and yeah, so there's a lot of different things in there.
So, unlike Emerald, I have seen the Mountain Goats in concert single digit times. I have seen them twice. Both times were when they were on the Goths tour. It was a great time. One thing that I know about Mountain Goats concerts, as few as I've been to, is that they're gonna end on the song This Year. If I had money to put on You Knowing a single Mountain Goats song, I would put it on You Knowing This Year. This Year is a survival anthem. This year is the survival anthem. It is a song that has gone platinum in my own personal listening history every single New Year's that I have been aware of it. A song that has been load-bearing in my life in ways that are hard to even put into words.
This is a song about how sometimes you are living in a house and you're in high school and your stepfather is abusing your mother and it really sucks. You have to take a lot of drugs to deal with that, right? Well, you don't have to, I should say, but you probably do. And when you do, they make you feel marginally better, but the main thing that makes you feel better is the company of other people who are as damaged as you are or will shortly become as damaged as you are, and you can sense it. Because there is an internal sensor. If you bear some damage, you have this sensor that says, that person is either damaged or is getting there, and I think I will hang out with her until things get a little brighter. I play this for a lovely person who wore a cape to school, and it's called This Year.
I think the crowd reactions in the banter are really great.
Yeah, that's so much of what I love about seeing them live and the live tapes is the energy from the crowd to the stage going back and forth in this like infinite feedback loop and the layers of context that he'll give to a song before presenting it, the way that the performances always change. In the comp, I have 3 or 4 versions of This Year. They all have a different kind of mood to them. Some are more somber and reserved. And then, of course, there's the raucous, jumping up and down crowd pop. Like the last track of the comp is a performance of This Year from the first show that the Mountain Goats did after their 1.5-year COVID hiatus. I think it opens with John saying, I've been waiting a long time to play this song.
You all know what I'm gonna play. Waited a long time to play this song.
And just like the energy of that room was palpable. Like no one could really believe that it was finally happening after it was postponed over and over and over. And everyone felt that song in a way that I don't think I've felt as like a collective maybe ever before or since. And so that one in particular is very special.
The first time that I was ever exposed to the Mountain Goats during that John Green Evening of Awesome thing, John Darnielle and John Worster did a set, which was bangers all the way through. It was really good. But they left off This Year. This Year was the final song at the very, very end of the
I didn't
show.
realize that.
Yes, like there were other segments in between. And then to send off the end of this really cool, really exciting night, everybody came back out. So it was like, it was John and Hank, it was Kimya Dawson, it was like everybody just poured onto the stage, and there was this big, excited rendition of This Year, and that was how they capped it off. And it was incredible, and I was hooked on the Mountain Goats from that moment on. I was enthralled. This Year is the one where I was like, this is a band I need to hear more from. And if I had been offered a playlist of all of these songs that are exactly in the vein of This Year, I think that I would have had a really great time with it.
Yeah, because like when you're first getting in the Mountain Goats, one, the catalog is so expansive. But if you're just like going to Spotify or whatever, you're listening to This Year, you see what the other top songs are, which I don't have Spotify, so I don't know, but I'm betting above This Year is No Children, which is essentially the antithesis of This Year. And so just like having this collection of similar songs to kind of keep that propulsion going when somebody really finds and is like really touched by This Year, I felt was really important because on the other side of their survival anthems are the opposite of survival anthems. And so like I feel a responsibility to kind of shepherd people into the right way.
And I don't think that it is a unique experience whatsoever for this year to have been the song that grabbed me and dropped me in feet first with this band. I feel like I have spoken to a lot of people who have had similar experiences. I think that's the reason why they do almost always end on this year. I think this year, from my experience at those two concerts, being in a crowd of people who were really resonating with this song and with its meaning was like a near religious experience.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, I've seen it many different times in many different cities, in states, and every single time it is the song that everyone pops off for. And as we're going through the set of Mountain Goat songs, themes of trauma and abuse and violence, ending on this year, you know, I would imagine, I would assume, is a very strategic move as to like move people through all of these things and then end on, you know, the ultimate survival anthem. A lot of people, especially when it comes to people who are into indie rock or whatever, will kind of scoff at the biggest hits and kind of roll their eyes, but like the hits are the hits for a reason. Like this year is just an incredible song. It's short, it's concise, like, and even in the chorus is incredibly short. It's one line repeated twice.
I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me. I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me.
Just the way that, you know, because the Mountain Goats shows are not really a moshing kind of crowd. There's not a whole lot of movement happening generally at a Mountain Goat show, but you know, when this year pops, everyone's jumping, dancing, screaming, celebrating. Just the perfect closer. It's the perfect thing to continually remind yourself of. Right after everyone's singing about, I hope you die, you know, I hope we both die, then, you know, I'm going to make it, you know, so it's great.
Because of this really special place that this year occupies for a Mountain Goats concert, for the fandom of the Mountain Goats, and honestly, it seems like for the band itself, a tradition of sorts began in 2015 when John began posting the New Year's benediction on his Twitter profile.
First year that John started doing the benedictions on Twitter was 2015. 2015 is when Beat the Champ was released, and I had sometime in 2015 turned on his post notifications on Twitter in anticipation of more news about Beat the Champ, and then I was like, this dude is really funny. He is a poster, capital P. I was just like, okay, you know, whatever he's tweeting about, it's not going to bother me getting continual notifications about. And so I actually got a post notification for his first benediction in 2015. And to this day, it remains my favorite one. There's a lot of good ones with a lot of different tones. But it's short, it's concise, and really just sums up the whole spirit of the benedictions to me, I think.
To everybody who at some point in 2015 thought they weren't strong enough to make it through, oh yes, you were. You were strong enough, and you were brave enough, and you were vulnerable enough to feel it, and strong enough to bear it. You did this, not anybody else. Respect to the toolbox, and love to the nail, but praise to the worker, and that's you if you're reading this. I am so honored when people tell me our song is what they play as they celebrate their survival. Don't have the words for how honored. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, so that one remains my favorite one. Since, you know, he has all of these really strong themes of survival and abuse and trauma, you know, over the years, a lot of people come to him and will be like, thank you for these songs, you saved my life. And I think part of why this particularly was so impactful to me is that I remember for a good period of my life where I would kind of have that kind of response and emotion to, you know, artists who made really impactful music to me. And the fact that he reframed it and kind of twisted it into a way of just like, I didn't do this. You're not alive because of me. I might have given you something that you use as a tool, but this is all you. Taking ownership of your own actions and saying like, oh, I survived because of me, despite of everything else with the help of other people. But all in all, it's really just myself. That was really powerful for me.
Yeah, I think that it's such a strong start. Absolutely. I think it's one of my favorites as well. And you were actually the one who compiled all of the benedictions for me because I was like, I know there's a bunch. I tried to look for them, but I couldn't previously find them all compiled in one place, which was also kind of interesting to me because I feel like in at least the online fandom spaces I've been in, the benedictions have been very important, and people will have favorites and ones that they remember and ones that they keep on their phone and still look at.
And just like a point to me searching high and low all across the internet for these benedictions, which were extremely popular, I should say. A lot of people say that the internet is forever, but it's not. The internet is only forever if it's archived and if it's on platforms that are searchable and not broken and stupid anymore. Despite them being really popular, it was like all over Reddit, Tumblr, Twitter. I searched high and low for these.
There's a lot in that benediction and in the theme of kind of like giving yourself the credit for surviving, especially, and even if that credit is for surviving because you loved something so much that you wanted to survive in order to see more of it, and how that is ultimately a reflection on you and on your strength and your perseverance. I think that a lot of that is reflected in a lot of the songs on this comp and also otherwise in the discography, which, the first of which that comes to my mind is the one that I have my first tattoo from AKA Spent Gladiator 1. Do every stupid thing that makes you feel alive.
Matches
Yeah!
Club.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every Mountain Goats fan
Yes.
has the matches. Nearly all of them.
Play with matches if you think you need to play with matches. Seek out the hidden places where the fire burns hot and bright.
I have found that song to be like so meaningful in so many different ways in my life ever since I had first heard it. I think there are a lot of Mountain Goats songs for me where my immediate memory of them when I listen to them is always going to be, not even necessarily when I discovered them, but like being like 19 or 20 for a lot of them, and just like, oh, this was my music at like my absolute lowest, most, desperate for something to cling on to. And I'm so grateful that it was a band that had so many hopeful things to cling on to. Because as you mentioned, it is also a band that has a lot of songs that are not about that, but it's really great to have the option.
Transcendental Youth, where AKA Spent Gladiator is from, I think is really like just full of those kind of songs of just being like down in the depths of it and crawling your way out, even if it doesn't appear that you have any reason to. Just doing it with the hope or expectation that, there's something on the other side and you're determined to find out. Yeah, that's why everyone has the matches.
This is a song about how if you feel defeated and trodden upon and wasted, not in the good sense of wasted, you find some small glimmering that manages to carry you through the next 60 seconds, and then you do that enough times to make an hour, and you do it enough times to make a day, and you keep right on doing it.
Yeah, this banter specifically still really hits. I think it's just like absolutely in line with the benedictions. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought it was one of them. And that's just kind of the whole thesis of like what really like inspired us to do this video together. Yeah. Is like finding that thing that keeps you alive and putting everything you have into it, even if you can only do it for a minute at a time. And then the chorus and repeating motif of that song being just stay alive. And so just doing whatever it takes to stay alive, just like you don't even have to put any energy into imagining what happens after staying alive, because you don't like the focus is just on the living part. I would say that Spent Gladiator is a really good companion to this year for kind of that reason.
I'll tell you a story about New Year's. When I was 19 one day, I woke up and there was a hole in the knee of my jeans. And when I got up to walk, my hip began clicking with each step, a problem that would continue for years. And I didn't know how long I had been asleep, which is to say, passed out, knocked out. I had a vague memory of the drugs I'd taken just before vanishing into the darkness, but that was it. I spent weeks asking people what day it was, calling people up from a payphone. Can you tell me what day it is? And them, audibly upset, sad, worried. John, you called and asked me this 5 minutes ago. I know, but please, I think it will help. But it didn't help. Nothing helped. My brain had taken a hard hit from something somehow. I would leave the apartment to look at the newspaper machine to see what the date was. I thought if I could keep that straight, maybe I'd be okay. March 1986. Nobody who valued their money would have bet $1 on me seeing 1987. And yet, and that was me. Lost, confused, desperate, incapable of taking care of myself. And you? You're better than I was then. It's nearly a sure thing, trust me. The things that assailed you and all of us in 2020, the death and the fear and the loss and the anger, they will one day be as hard to recollect as which knee I had the scab on for the month following my long blackout. All we have to do is find a way to make the next day happen, because the days add up. It doesn't feel like they will, but they do. And the worst times, though they may grow more rotten, eventually compost the better ones. And if you're reading this, you did it. You made it down the hall to the payphone to find out what day it was. You found a quarter in the couch and bought the newspaper and got the date right. Small victories count. Small victories count. And though the vaccine rollout has us all wondering how long it will really be until we can return ourselves to the world, the day is coming. The day's coming. We will wait for that day together and cheer its dawn. This thread is for Howard and Bob, who didn't make it to the end of this year. And for you, who did.
I think my favorite benediction, though there are a lot and it was pretty hard to choose, is the one from 2021, which is the hell yes, I have 3 potatoes one. I was washing potatoes last night when I got excited. It was just one of those moments, you know? I was getting dinner together and I looked at the ingredients coming together on the counter and I thought to myself and said aloud, hell yes, I have 3 potatoes. Living with me means having to develop a robust tolerance for hearing a guy occasionally cry aloud, saying, for example, hell yes, I have 3 potatoes. But over and above my everyday state of excitement about the 10 trillion small things that ease the path a little, colors, shades, sounds, flavors, sensations, moods, fleeting thoughts, moments of transcendence when you're very lucky, I had one of those moments of gratitude to have food. And not just the food, but a counter to prep it on and a stove for cooking. But it wasn't just the food and the kitchen and the comforts of home either. It was me standing at the stove in a house where I'm safe, got here on my own 2 feet, had a lot of help. Plenty of points where I wouldn't have bet on the outcome. Now I have 3 potatoes, you know? Here's the thing. Some of you are reading this in houses where you're not safe all the time, and I know it. Some of you are day to day with any of 1,000 different troubles, and on any given day you feel like you might buckle. Maybe you felt like that a lot of times over the past couple years. A lot of people have. Some people have felt that way who'd had some preparation, and some people have found themselves navigating scary, unfamiliar straits. But if you're reading this right now, you've managed to make it work. Maybe it doesn't feel like it worked all that well. Maybe you feel like you're coasting across the goal with no fuel at all left in the tank. But here you are. Here you are, having found some way to nourish yourself through it. Look at the calendar. Look at the clock. You sustained yourself through this. Maybe you got sick. Maybe it was real bad. Maybe some things got better and maybe they got worse. But give yourself the gift of a long look in the mirror. Look at the person hard, uncertain times in days of sickness everywhere will see another year. That's the person who will do it again. And to that person, over and over, I say loud enough for the neighbors to hear, hell yes, hell yes, hell yes, hell yes. From all of us here at the Mountain Goats Central Command, a thank you for seeing us through 2021. It was so good to see you in the flesh again. Stay safe. Trust yourselves. You will see one another through to safer times. This year's New Year's Eve thread is dedicated to that one guy who's mad about people wishing one another a Happy New Year. May he never know why people actually do it. And may the rest of us collectively, defiantly, never forget it. When I was that miserable, sheltered teenager, my wildest fantasy and the thing that I would return myself to over and over again in my head would be to tell myself that one day I was going to have my own apartment and that I was going to have a dog. And I do not have a dog and I do not have my own apartment. But I do have an apartment that I live in and I have a cat. And those are things that are so close to, this far off distant one day fantasy that I used to have for myself. And that because the form that they exist in is so, it's a difficult life that I live. I live a challenging life. I live a life where it is still hard to feel positive and assured that I am going to make it through the year, or that is even always something that I want to do a lot of the times. And then being able to remember how far I have come, especially from other times when that song has been just as relevant and just as precious to me, just as motivating. And to know that I have these things that I always wanted. I have this level of safety that I did not have before. And I have 3 potatoes. Hell yes, I have 3 potatoes.
Yeah, what I really love about the potatoes benediction is how it highlights the beauty and the importance of recognizing the mundane in your life, because like one, being able to recognize and appreciate those things is kind of important as like a survival strategy, because sometimes that's all you have. But yeah, just being able to celebrate something as simple as, oh shit, I forgot I have 3 potatoes and I'm going to eat potatoes now. And how just like building, like being able to find those things in your life that do propel you forward. Like when all you have is 3 potatoes, that's still, we're celebrating.
This was one that I noticed. I noticed when I was putting together a set list is a partner to In Memory of Satan, which I had never noticed before. Because I'm of the belief that there are really only so many themes for songs, and you can do a number of different dressing up of the things that you tend to obsess about. But I think most songwriters have a few things they tend to obsess about. I have recurring images and phrases, right? But one of mine, which is not surprising to me when I think about it, is emerging from someplace after a long period of waiting to emerge, right? For whatever reason, right? Whether some people in my songs who are emerging, it's because they were too wounded to come out, and some feel like they can't come out, and I don't know if this is the first occurrence of that, but I noticed like it's a predecessor to In Memory of Satan, which is sort of I think the more melancholy version of this one, which is called Absolute Lithops Effect.
When Ophi and I were putting this video together and putting the comp together and, basing it around this year and deciding, okay, where do we point to people next? We decided that we would each pick a song from the comp that we had made as a kind of a segue point into kind of also illustrate the range of survival songs that the Mountain Goats have in their discography and ones that are just have been important to us. The song that I picked is Absolute Lithops Effect, which is from All Hail West Texas. Lithops are a small succulent that are stone shaped, and they take, like other succulents, but I think more so, take extraordinary care and effort to grow and help thrive. And they look like rocks, but from these rocks grow really beautiful flowers, and then the rocks shrivel away to generate more new growth. And so the overarching theme of the song is, okay, what happens after you've survived? And I remember when I first heard this song, it was late winter, early spring. I was living in Denver in this like really crummy studio apartment. And I remember I was sitting at my desk and I was looking out my window, which had these little potted succulents on it when I first heard this song. Also was coincidentally when I was emerging out of a depressive episode. And the thing that, as someone who has like been dealing with depression for as long as I can remember, the hardest part of it for me has always been coming out of it. Because I like, a lot of people with depression can probably relate to how there's kind of a comfort down in the deep depths. We're used to that, and we kind of, you can easily be susceptible to like romanticizing it, to kind of, clinging on to it because it's what you know, but it's the coming out of it. The lyric is, I'm pink and raw.
My insides are pink and raw, and it hurts me when I move my jaw, but I am taking tiny steps forward.
And so how coming out of it hurts. It's like coming in from outside when you've been outside in the snow for a really long time and your skin kind of feels like it's on fire. That's how it's always felt for me. And so this song is really about that, coming out of the depression, and how so much of healing is just having to wait. And that has always been really difficult to me because, I just like to do something and be done with it. But the inherent process of healing is that you have to wait and you have to tend to yourself. And from taking care of yourself and tending to yourself, like flowers will grow. It will take a long time and it's not going to feel great while it's happening, but just how vital that is to just the process. I'm probably going to be dealing with depression in some form and levels of severity for the rest of my life. And so I'm going to have to be continually reminded, because also people who are depressed don't tend to be very nice to themselves. So that's a really important part to really kind of hammer in, is that it's essential to living and growth is to tend to yourself. And then things will bear fruit from that effort.
It is a song, like a lot of my songs, about survival and about looking into the face of the people who do not wish you the type of survival you would like to have. And thinking toward them, I wish you well, but I will not allow you to hold me down.
I was really surprised how little I initially thought I had to add about this song. Like, it's been one of my favorite songs through, like, my entire life. And so I really expected I would have this, like, connective, personal relationship with it, aside from just, like, liking it. And I guess I do and I don't. I definitely don't have enough of a meaningful personal connection for me to talk about it interestingly on my own. So I called my mom. We're a multi-generational Mountain Goats household. This shirt is actually from when my sister went to the Get Lonely tour. And apparently when that happened, John Darnell, like, kind of, I guess, singled her out. I'm not sure why. She's pretty. Probably has something to do with it. But he ended up giving her like a set list from the show that I think she gave to me, and I almost certainly lost, so that's awesome. But I called my mom to talk about specifically death metal, but like the entire All Hail West Texas album, and talk about kind of like what it means to her and what she thinks like the themes are, and like what caused her to, and really my entire family, to like latch onto it. And she talked about how a big theme in a lot of these songs is the hopefulness of youth kind of slowly getting crushed, but also resilience in the face of that. And not just resilience, but like heroism in that resilience. Like death metal really tells this like hero's tale about somebody getting treated like garbage and being resilient in the face of that.
This is a song about hope in your life. There's a magnificent Mark Eitzel song titled, "It is important throughout life to proclaim your joy." It's also important to admit on occasion to the righteousness of your fury, the justness of your cause in the face of those who would do you wrong and who would rob you of your youth. good and beautiful in you. And I know this is all corny platitude stuff, but I know people who got sent to places. It sucked for them. You can't even say how bad it was. Kirk Fitzpatrick, I remember when they sent you away, man. This is for you.
So that album came out in 2000 or 2002. I don't really remember. And, you know, there was just in the 90s and certainly before that, this culture of bullying, particularly in suburbs where people are so isolated. Like, I mean, that's definitely a theme in West Texas because it's like the middle of nowhere. Like you're completely isolated in this tiny and hostile community, and you just have to survive as a teenager with not that much agency. I think one of the things that's really great about that song and kind of about the Mountain Goats ethos in general is that it's such a celebration of resilience, and it implicitly rejects this sort of Christian bullying culture that just ruins people's lives, that just makes the world worse. And I think that probably has to do with how much of a queer fan base follows the band. In this song in particular, I think the way that it frames revenge is this really refreshing repudiation of this like Christian, you know, turn the other cheek, that really in practicality for like outsiders in these tiny little cloistered bullying white ass suburbs, all it does is deprive them of any agency to retaliate, you know, and it moralizes that too. It moralizes their experiences of feeling anger and desiring retribution of justice. And it frames that as being inherently immoral, and that the song just so thoroughly rejects that. You know, it frames their plan to get even, again putting aside some of the implications there, as like this way to assert agency. And I think that it kind of taps into this valuable aspect of anger that allows people who have been wronged to enforce the fact that people don't have the right to treat them like that.
When you punish a person for dreaming his dream, don't expect him to thank or forgive you.
The way that, at the climax of the song, the Hail Satan, it's such a unambiguous rejection of this Christian moral aesthetic of placidness, of accepting wrongs and accepting discrimination, essentially not asserting your right to be treated decently. And so it's like just so satisfying. Even today, it feels like subversive the way that it rejects that Christian bullying culture. And really, through this sort of joy and irreverence of the tone, it kind of reveals like the sham that it is, the completely ridiculous and unjust enforcement of this pearl clutching, this moral pearl clutching that has a lot of dominance over people's lives right now. It being about death metal too, you know, like a death metal band, the way that it frames the aspirations of these young men is just such like a joyful, youthful, adolescent expression of being an outsider, and also just like adolescent hope, you know. And the way that it paints their towns, their society's reaction to that as being so unjust and so worthy of retribution is just gratifying, you know. Like it feels, it's such a human urge to seek justice, particularly when you don't have any faith in any systems of power to get that justice for you. And it's just so satisfying to have that desire recognized, and to strip away the moralization of those feelings. You know, it just feels good. It feels celebratory. It feels subversive to this day. And I remember like growing up, my sister for a little while was in this, like, she got a scholarship to this private high school that, I mean, it was like a very fancy high school that we would have never afforded. And she was like the poor kid. And it just had this horrible, like, hegemonic culture. It's just like this waspy, rich bullshit. And I remember at one point, my dad was picking her up from one of her like wasp friends' houses, and he like drives up, and the death metal was like the best ever death metal band out of Denton was blasting, and like it gets to the Hail Satan part, and he hops out, and he's like, I was just in Canyon City, which is in southern Colorado, and it has like a bunch of prisons, and he's like, look at all of the shanks that I bought from this like thrift store, and he like in the driveway of this like mansion of this waspy conservative family, he unrolls all these shanks, and the song is just like, you know, Hail Satan, and like it just the great thing about it is that when you're listening to that song, you picture the exact type of person that would be upset about it, and just the satisfaction of upsetting them. Like even that kind of disrupts this power. Shit, I think that's most of what I have.
Thank you so much to Schmouder for participating in this video. You should absolutely go and subscribe to Schmouder here on YouTube. You will find his channel linked in the description below, along with everything else referenced in this video. Like the song clips I have been using, which are sourced from the live tapes on the Internet Archive, and are all picks from the playlist Emerald and I made for this video. The song I singled out was, I'm pretty sure, the first Mountain Goat song that really grabbed me other than this year. An unreleased song John Darnielle put on his set list for the Evening of Awesome at Carnegie Hall. A song about a friend of his who was bullied, called You Were Cool.
This is a song for little guys everywhere.
As I've already mentioned, my life was terrible when I was a teenager, and I know there's a certain level of self-pity in even just saying that, but also this is a video about the mountain goats and how much I love them. Cut me a little slack. I've already told you the best memory I have involving my father. When he paid enough attention to me to buy me a book, I would conservatively estimate I must have brought up in conversation a couple of dozen times. But a close second is a time when I'm fairly certain, in retrospect, that he just stole a line from a good dad from a TV show or something. As I've already mentioned, I was homeschooled, which is a thing that makes it very, very difficult to make friends. Not only because I would only have the chance to socialize about once a week at church, but also because my social skills had been taught to me by a mother who is entirely too fucked up and complicated and shitty for me to get into even an anecdote about in a video essay. Suffice it to say, I really struggled with making connections with other people, or with feeling liked once I did make those connections. This is something I still really struggle with even into adulthood. The kind of thing I think just got wired into my brain with incorrect settings. My second best memory with my dad is sitting in a car talking to my father about how lonely I felt. And for once, rather than my parents pretending to themselves and to me that I was getting an adequate level of socialization or that my life was actually fine, my dad kind of met me where I was at. He told me that I was right, basically, about how hard of a time I was expressing having connecting with other people my age in youth group. And what he told me, that I think he probably stole from a TV show, is that I was going to be really, really cool once I was in college. That I may struggle now, but someday people were going to be really excited to be my friend. This was, of course, the same father who had no qualms about letting that fucked up mother be entirely in charge of my education, outright discourage me from pursuing higher education, even though I talked about how badly I wanted to go to college at least as often as I talked about my favorite John Green books, and then put no effort whatsoever into helping me achieve that goal. In that way, like I said in the beginning, this is yet another story from my childhood that becomes sad and frustrating the more I think about it. Longtime viewers of this channel know I still have not had the opportunity to go to school. I was given a fake high school diploma, immediately entered the workforce, and then became too disabled to even do that, and now I do this. But the thing is, though there are not a lot of cases in my life where this is true about either of my parents, my dad was right in that case when he told me that, whether he was stealing it from some good TV dad or not. I grew up, and people did start to treat me differently, especially once I started to treat myself differently. In other words, even though people were mean to me, people in my own household, people who were meant to protect and care for me, I was still cool. And that's really kind of what this song is about for me. It's not why the song was written. The song is about a particular person, and that person is not me. And that person was not being homeschooled and isolated from the rest of the world. But I think that that's so much of the beauty of the Mountain Goats discography, is how things that were written for particular people, or fictional people, or based on stories or myth or lore, can be so identified with in the people who hear them. And I identified with You Were Cool hard. And I know a lot of people who heard it at the same live streamed event I did the same thing.
We held on to hope a better day's coming, and when we did, we were right. I hope the people who did you wrong have trouble sleeping at night.
It was the perfect time and place for that song at a book release for a young adult author to do his song about his friend that was bullied in high school and how she deserved that. I think it was really incredible that, he did that. And because it also is an unreleased song, he's even mentioned that, like, because he had done that performance and it had been recorded, that he couldn't do one better for, like, a studio official release, because, like, that was just it. It was just, like, doing it in that space for all of these young people who were likely also experiencing some form of, like, ostracization or being bullied at school. And so that performance really just kind of made its way into, like, the Mountain Goats canon. Yeah, I mean, it's really great. And, like, whom's among us cannot relate? I mean, I'm sure there are people who weren't bullied in high school, but if you're listening to the Mountain Goats, you probably were. For being, like, too eccentric, too weird, for being, gay, whatever it was. It's also like your adult self speaking to your younger self. It hits.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's so good.
People were mean to you, but I always thought you were cool. Looking down the concrete hallways in your slide heels back in high school. Yeah, yeah!
It's time for the benediction. As a former Catholic, I relish the quasi-heretical opportunity to be handing out benedictions. But actually, hierarchies have to rely on tradition alone for support, and tradition's only any good when it nurtures. I want to repeat that part because it's important. Tradition's only any good when it nurtures. Some of us, not naming names, but at least one of them looks like me, have been through times when our traditions not only no longer nurtured anything good within us, but were actually our enemies. Yet did we continue to observe our traditions because, at least we had that going for us, right? Right. Friends, if you're hearing Franklin Bruno's glorious piano riff in your head right now, then I thank you for singing this year with us 64 or 65 times this year. Every time we play, I'm amazed and humbled. So, in your honor, my prayer for you all tonight is, may the traditions of this year that no longer nurtured you all die at midnight. May their memory next year and in the years to come be complex, and may it grow blurry. May we persevere, carrying the banner of those we could not bring with us into the full splendor of our perseverance. I am silent here to remember their names for a moment. May we all do them proud. Thank you, all of you who break open the ampule that holds our song in your first aid kits tonight. It means the world, and we hope to be worthy of it. Happy New Year.
As Emerald and I already mentioned, this is a video we've been wanting to make for a while now. The Mountain Goats, their music, and all the people I've had a chance to meet even just virtually because of them have become such a point of light in my life. Even now, even with my life being one that features many more windows to the outside world than it used to when I was younger. My life was terrible when I discovered the Mountain Goats, and depending on who you ask or when you ask me, my life still can be kind of terrible. I'm dealing with a lot, with things that I share on my YouTube channel and with things that I deal with privately. And once again, this music, the same songs that I clinged on to as a teenager, as a 19-year-old, as a 23-year-old, and now as a 27-year-old, has such a prominent place in my life this year. I think it will every year. At some point around 2 years ago now, something really shifted for me. I started making YouTube videos. It is difficult for me to explain all of the ways in which that decision has shifted and brightened my life. It isn't just the fact that this gets to be my job, that I get to sit down and talk about whatever I want to talk about for as long as I want to talk about it. Even and especially when it's stuff that people I've spent much time around in the real world would not let me spend quite so many hours digging into. And though the community I've managed to find along the way is a big part of it, favorite commenters and other creators, people to collaborate with, it's all of it. Making YouTube videos has changed my life. It has changed my entire relationship with myself. It has given me a reason to want to be and stay alive. And it's difficult to even begin to put to words what a new experience that is for me. It ends up being so much of what I talk about in therapy. There's so much further that I want to go with my writing, with my YouTube career, with this new strange feeling where I would be sad if I were to suddenly die. Wanting at all is something that can be so unfamiliar to me, except for the fact that I have made room throughout my small and varyingly miserable life for whatever little points of joy I could find, even during times when I could not extract nearly as much joy from them. And that's my wish for you too, for everyone watching this video. I hope that even if nothing can get easier in our lives on a structural or mechanical level, even if and when everything is against us the way that it has been this year and for many years before it, that we can all develop the muscles that allow us to at least want things to get better.
I think the companion theme to this video, when we were kind of brainstorming what this video was going to be, is what you do to survive and like then what you do after. The things that you do to change your life in a way that it's not just about making it through. It's building up the pillars in your life to make you a more like structurally sound person so that you escape the crawling your way out part of survival. And then also building that toolbox of resources and things in your life to where when you do fall back into that place, it's a lot easier to get back out. And so, like pretty much every other hardcore Mountain Goats fan, I discovered the Mountain Goats in a time that was not particularly good. It really resonated with me. And ever since I was a kid, I've always been about going to concerts, live music. It's been a great kind of energy source, life force in my life. It's a place that I always feel just like very alive. That very quickly became one of the things in my toolkit that I would use in my like depths of survival is always having another concert to look forward to. After I saw the Mountain Goats for the first time, like I was raised in the church, but despite my best efforts, never believed. And that first show was like the closest thing to a religious experience I had ever felt. Just that very communal aspect of it. And it was like from there, I just decided, oh, I'm going to go to every Mountain Goat show that I can. And that decision to see the Mountain Goats as much as I can change the trajectory of my life in every like way imaginable, because in order to go to as many Mountain Goat shows as I can, I had to live a life that would facilitate that. You know, I had to have my shit together enough to be able to afford to buy the tickets, to go to the shows, to drive from state to state to state. And so, like, it wasn't a conscious decision, really. It was just like, oh, this is the thing that I want to do. And oh, how do I do that? And so just like in the background, I have to take care of myself. I have to work. I have to work jobs that will allow me to do this. I have to maintain my car, all of those kinds of things. And as I'm going to all these Mountain Goat shows, I'm also meeting other people. as I'm traveling around and seeing mountain goat shows, I met my husband. I met most of the people in my life who are dearest to me. And these shows, more and more as I went on, became points of celebration and less load bearing as time went on, but also opened me up to participating in the community in a way that like really enriched my life outside of actually being at the show. And, you know, just that decision in 2015 when I was like, oh, I can get in my car and drive to Utah changed my life forever. So as a result of deciding to live my life in a way that would allow me to go do my favorite thing as often as I could, it just had a rippling effect throughout my life that just made everything better. Because as I'm doing this thing, I'm making my life better in other ways to be able to do this thing. And so it's building up everything around me. Now going to shows isn't as like load bearing as it used to be in my life, but it's still just like this renewable energy force that really just keeps propelling myself forward, because it's just like there's always new people to meet. There's always new cities and things to visit and experience. And like, there's always more songs to hear. And I want to be alive to experience it. And so that's what this is for me. But ultimately, the goal, if you become a fan of the Mountain Goats because of this video, awesome. Hell yeah. But if that's not your thing, like find whatever that is for you and put everything you've got into it. Because like I won't say there's any point in just like just the struggle and just like fighting to survive. But like the part that I feel like needs more attention is what do you do to make your life worth living when you do survive?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, like, whatever little tiny measures of joy that you can find for yourself and invest in have, like, this really big compounding interest effect almost. You get yourself used to the idea of, like, okay, I can experience joy. I can be happy about something. And even if that is something that seems kind of silly or that looks weird to people from the outside or that people don't particularly have much interest in listening to when you sit down and want to talk about it for hours, I think that's all still so worth investing in and so worth finding the other people who will allow you to invest in that with them. I think again, yeah, it does not have to be the Mountain Goats. It can be whatever you want. For many people, it's Taylor Swift. For a lot of people, it is whatever other boy band they like. And I think no matter what it is, no matter what thing that somebody is able to cling on to, that is worth celebrating. That is worth being proud of yourself for.
Yeah, like you said, whatever that is for you, find the thing you like, find the community that's involved with it, proceed with caution in regards to that. Sometimes like Opie and I met online, of course. I think the part that really pulls it together for me is not just it existing for me online, but then existing for me in person in real life and meeting the people who aren't like as hardcore into it to be in Facebook shit posting groups. But online communities are a great way to ease in, to figure things out, but then also using that as like not beginning and stopping there, but then incorporating it into real life and then also contributing to that community so that it keeps going. So my husband, Kyle, who tapes, he is one of the people who found the Mountain Goats through Moral Oral and then discovered the live tapes. And he would be listening to the tapes while he was out delivering pizzas. And that is what inspired him to become a taper himself because he found this thing that was so important to him and so inspirational to him that he wanted to be part of the effort that preserves this magic, capturing this lightning in a bottle so that some other pizza delivery driver down the line can have it too. And so I think, that's like maybe step 4 is find ways to contribute to and preserve whatever it is that you love, and having that be kind of an inroads for others to join in. So I met my husband Kyle at a Mountain Goat show in Denver. He had traveled to that show to tape it. Then he and I started talking. Eventually we started dating. And then as we were preparing to go on our first Mountain Goats trip together, he was telling me about one of the most legendary, like, old school Mountain Goats tapers who would travel around with his wife, and they would tape the shows, and he would hand out these buttons that they would make for the shows. And he says to me, why don't we do something like that? And so I started in 2018 making unique Mountain Goat stickers for every show that I go to when I can, and handing them out to people. It's been something that's been like a long tradition within the Mountain Goats fan base at concerts to make things to give out to people at shows. I'm wearing a couple of my Goss related pony bead. A lot of people these days do the bracelets. I've gotten patches, zines, wood keychains that are laser engraved, all number of things that are really cool. And having that kind of be, especially if you want to meet people at shows, and if you're someone who's normal about seeing the Mountain Goats and you're seeing them, in a place that you live, it's a great way to, make connections where you live and have it be like a kind of icebreaker into meeting people, especially now that it's become like it's always been, or maybe not always, but it's been a thing in the community for a long time, but it's, I think, more popular than ever. There was a time that kind of the more old school Mountain Goats fans were kind of dropping out from going to shows for whatever reason around the same time that I started doing the stickers. And so it started being this thing where I would have to like give a little spiel to people when I was handing out stickers, like, I make Mountain Goat stickers to give to people at shows. It's free. I don't want anything from you. You don't have to take it. It's for the love of the game. But now, like, I can go anywhere, and people will be like, oh, I met you at this show in 2020 and you gave me this. And it'll be like from the opposite side of the country from where I had originally met them, or just like everyone these days is giving them out. And it's become like such a overwhelmingly positive part of the community, and a way to just kind of make these connections with people who you could see again, you might not ever see again, but it's been such a big part of the experience of like Mountain Goat shows overwhelmingly being these really welcoming crowds where nobody needs to feel left out, because we're all, again, gay and traumatized. And so we're trying to do that all together. Not all, but of course. Yeah, it's just part of that kind of connection and community building, and just people really wanting to share this, like, the joy of this experience with somebody else. And so, like, don't ever feel like, if you're someone who doesn't tend to go do things by themselves, just show up early and sit in line, and you very quickly will not be by yourself anymore. And so it's been really cool watching that really develop over time, because that was not always the experience of going to a Mountain Goat show. I am old enough and have been doing this long enough to remember when it was not. But then once again, Beat the Champ comes out, the incredible album about pro wrestling in the American Southwest in the 1970s, with all of these vulnerable, raw, homoerotic songs about wrestlers, comes out, and the vibes start to shift. And the guys who got really into Tallahassee because they also think that like Tyler Durden is a good guy started to be like, this isn't for me anymore. It's great. I love it. Just like, just I'm the opposite of a gatekeeper. Like, I don't like, and I wasn't always, there's it's just like I don't see any utility in it. in my mind, it's like the more the merrier. Like it's my favorite thing, and I want other people to experience it. So like, get in here, and yeah, that's what it tends to be like, no matter where I see them. And so that's been like a really incredible thing to experience.
To experience 113 times.
113 times, and yeah, I mean, I'm in it until they're for I can't do it anymore or they can't do it anymore. I'll have to find something else to do, but until then, I'm in it.
Now every year on New Year's Eve, people play This Year, a song for which I was going to write a more complicated chorus, but Peter told me, no, don't do that, it's done. I think he also hedged that by saying, I guess if you want to, but my assumption is he planned to lobby for the original chorus unless I found a rabbit in the hat. If tomorrow it turns out it's time for me to actually go back and get my RN and leave the music biz behind, y'all have already made real my young kid dream of writing a song that people sang to each other when they needed something to hold on to. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming out to our shows all year. Thank you for showing me every day how many ways everybody finds to scrape by and rise up better than we were the day before. This has been my annual Getting Emotional New Year's benediction. I'm not actually qualified to give a benediction as far as I know, yet I must benedict. Bless us all who play the long game. The odds are in our favor unless the signs and the entrails lie, which they don't because they can't. Entrails don't lie. My New Year's blessing to everybody.
I had much larger, much grander plans for this video, and then I got the flu. And I'm still running fevers even a couple of weeks later. So many more days this month, this year, than I have wanted have been eaten up by a relentless need to crawl into my bed and lay down in the dark. I have, at this point in my life, had the song This Year as the soundtrack for more New Year's than not. And each year it manages to hit in a different way, tie into the things going on in my life, in my December, in my world, and help to propel me through different things, even if I am stumbling on my feet the whole way through them. I'm recording this video with a fever. I've recorded most of this video with a fever. I've been stepping over bags of trash in my bedroom because I've been a little too nervous to take the stairs down to the trash can outside with how dizzy I keep getting. I've spent Decembers listening to This Year, where the reasons where I felt like I might not make it through were much more existential, much more along the lines of having a soundtrack to your own child abuse that you listen to as you're actively going through that abuse. Much more along the lines of, periods in my life where crawling into bed and laying down in the dark wasn't because of the physical kind of pain it is now. And the thing all of those years have in common, no matter how heavy I might be on the if it kills me part, is that I did make it through them. And you watching this, whatever survival anthems from whatever band you love have helped to carry you through it. You made it too. So I don't care what the thing is that helps you to make it through the year. If it's the Mountain Goats, that's great. If it's My Chemical Romance or any other pop punk band, a boy band, a problematic girl billionaire, I think being able to put enough of yourself into something in order to want to survive is the most basic step any of us can take toward creating a life we actually can invest in. And I can tell you from experience, I know how goddamn hard it is to care about the everything else going on when you're not sure you're making it from month to month or year to year. And that thing you love could be music. Like I said, I've had about 14 years now where this year has ended up being some kind of primary soundtrack in the very tail end of my year. It could also be making YouTube videos. It could be writing an extensive alternate universe with fairies and vampires set in New Jersey with your best friend that has gotten me through many years. It could be some young adult series you read as a child or something you read more recently and have decided to cling on to. Maybe sometimes I'm kind of just staying alive until the last book in the Locked Tomb series comes out. Who cares? It works. The thing that kept me alive during my teenage years was knowing I needed to see the last Hunger Games adaptation when it came out, and then guess what? They kept making those. What I want for you, for me, for everybody watching this video is for us to keep making it through the year. And I want us to be able to celebrate that when we pull it off, because I know, at least for me, this has not been the easiest year to see through to the end. But I did. And you did. And we're going to keep doing it, no matter what we're using as our life jacket when we do. If you're here, if you watch my videos, if you let me do this for a job, or if you're just somebody who relates to the conceit of this video enough to have stuck around for so much of it, I am so grateful to you. I'm so grateful for the window to the outside world that this channel provides. So grateful for the chance to talk about the mountain goats for so long. Some of which I even cut out of this video for time. So if you're interested in seeing more of my conversation with Emerald, you can find that on my Patreon, which will be linked in the description below. Thank you so much to Emerald for collaborating with me on this video and on our survival comp. Thank you to everybody who read benedictions for us. Thank you to John Darnielle for writing them in the first place, and for apparently being very cool and chill about the use of his music from the live tape archives. And thank you, of course, to my lovely Patreon friends who get that alternate cut of this video, got a video earlier in the month of me and Emerald ideating for this one, and who will soon be getting a video going over the songs on my own personal starter Mountain Goats playlist, but who have been really, really understanding of how sick I have gotten in the last weeks of this year. Having this video out for New Year's has been really important to me, important enough to make me work on this video a little bit too hard, if I'm being honest. I've been really pushing myself, but I wanted to end this year on as triumphant a note as I could muster, and sometimes that does, in fact, look like dragging yourself over the finish line. I dragged myself, but I'd made it. I did it. You did it too. I love you. I will see you next year, or whenever you end up watching this video. I guess I do hope people watch it for more than just the one day, but I am posting this on New Year's Eve, so Happy New Year. Okay. Love you. Stay alive. Bye.
My broken house behind me, all good things ahead. A girl named Kathy wants a little of my time. 6 cylinders underneath the hood, crashing and kicking. Yeah, listen to the engine whine. I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me. I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me.